Hi everybody, Dwayne here again, and thanks for joining me for yet another piano lesson on tunes over Twiddlybits. Now, the last time I showed you my selections regarding using the three chords that we're working with to play a basic accompaniment for the song Jesus Loves Me, This I Know. I had said at the end of the last lesson that I encourage you to go through the song yourself and to feel free to make selections other than those that I showed you, because nothing that I showed you is set in stone. It might well be that you come up with something that sounds better than what I chose. But what we're going to do today, as I had promised, is to explore some of the different options and to see why some may work and some may not work. Now, I'll give you a quick reminder of my selections for the song. I'll just go through quickly. So here we are. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. No. Let's look at that first passage. For Jesus loves me, I started on C, went to G, and went back to C. So let's go again. Jesus, then I went to loves me, then this I know. No. To make this most effective, I think that rather than sing, it would be better for me to play the melody on the piano against the chords that I've chosen. Now, in a later lesson, I'll talk you through picking out the melody by ear, and I will also show you some ways to do it a bit more efficiently. I'm sure you could do it on your own by just searching until you find the notes that you want. But there are some ways that you can get to the notes that you want a bit more quickly, and I will show you those tips later on. But for now, I'll just show you what the melody notes are. So you would already know that my starting note, the starting note is G. So it's Jesus loves me, this I know. So it's G. Then the next note we move to is E, then down to D, then back to E, then back to G. Of course, I'm not taking account of the number of times each is pressed, but when you change note, those are the notes that you change to. Now, to illustrate, I will play that melody line 2 octaves up to get out of my own way whilst I play the chords that I've selected. So instead of playing it here, I'll go all the way up here and play the G up here. Okay, so let's go with what I selected. Here we go. Now, I would like to think that this first chord, the C, there's not really much room for maneuver here. If you want to get fairly exotic with your harmonies, even though you're using only 3 chords right now, that's a matter for you. But I tend to think that this is the stable sound. The C chord is where we should start. So here we go. And you will notice it harmonizes. Now, the melody note G is in the chord. And that's the biggest clue. If your melody note is one of the notes in the chord that you choose, then invariably it will work. It will harmonize. So you see, the C chord is C, E, G, and your melody note is G. There's no reason why it wouldn't work. So here, that's fine. But look at where it gets tricky now. I go, and then my next chord, I move to G, but my melody note remains E. Let's go again. Now, one of the things that you could have chosen to do was stay on C. Let's see how that would sound. Now, if you did that, you might argue, considering that we are playing one chord to last for 2 beats, and so therefore in each bar you play another chord, whether it's the same or not, you strike a chord again for beat 3 and hold it for beat 4, then bearing in mind that on the 3rd beat your melody note is E, then you might say it works better for you to have stayed on a C chord. So now look at it. It is, then this is the 3rd beat. I did this, I went to G. So you have an E harmonizing over a G chord, which doesn't have E in it. So remember, the G chord is G, B, D, and your melody note is E. So here we go. Does this work? It's a matter of taste. As we get further on with this song, I will show you how it could indeed work and does indeed work. But if you chose, instead of moving to G, to stay on E, technically you could argue it works better. So your selection would have been, if that was indeed your selection, it would work like this. The E harmonizes perfectly with the C chord, which is C, E, G. The E and the E would harmonize, and of course the C and the G that complete the chord will complement what you're playing. So here we go. And then carrying on, your melody goes back to E and then up to G, so you would play C again. Now, the truth is that you could argue, if you stayed on C the entire time, that it's technically accurate, but I would argue that it's a bit boring, it's a bit monotonous. So what you would have had was this. To break the sameness, I chose to go to G, so it was this. Now that's one option. Another option would be to go to F. Let's see if that would work. So, remember our melody line is. So I think it's fair to say we've agreed that we should be starting on a C chord, but the question is, do we move at all? I chose to move and I went to G. Could you have chosen to move and go to F? Well, you could have, but would it have worked? Let's see. Let's try that again. And then I assume you would have gone back to C. Now that's interesting. The whole idea is holding the E melody note over an F chord. For loves me, then back to C. This I know. Again, it could work because what you have is, if I move the E down here, how does this sound? I'll play the melody an octave lower. That actually sounds quite nice. At least I think so. Then back to C. Okay, now moving on, I had chosen to go to F. Now, I would venture to suggest that you probably really don't have a plausible option other than going to F. Because if you look at this entire bar, your melody note is, it's A, then up to C, then back to A. So those are 2 of the 3 notes in the F chord. So one wonders why you would want to hold a different chord beneath that melody line. For the Bible. And then I went back to C. Tells me. And then I went to G. So, no. Let's break that down a bit. So for the second line, for the Bible, I went to F. For the Bible. Pardon me, I shouldn't have played a chord again there. Let's do that again. then back to C. Now here's the trick. Holding A over C chord. You might argue that you would be better off staying on F here. Which means if you had chosen to do that, your selection would have been better than mine, because you would have avoided the arguable dissonance of holding an A melody note over C chord. So here we go again. That was my selection, but you could have done this. Meaning, instead of having done F twice, then C twice, you could have done F 3 times and C once. So here it is again. My selection. An alternative. And of course, there are a number of other alternatives. We won't go through every single one. But what I'm saying is that there is a lot of room for you to play around with even just the 3 chords that we have, because you can come up with some different harmonies that could actually work. And that is the beauty with playing by ear. If you're not stuck to a script trying to reproduce what someone else has written down, then there are infinite possibilities that you could explore and discover by letting your taste and your ear be your guide. So let's move on. Remember now that the next line is pretty much the same as the first line. So little ones to him belong. Let me get out of my own way. Let's do that again. It's the same thing. Remember, we discussed this. I went to the G and I ended up playing an E over the G. You might well say you want to stay on C. Excuse me. But again, I had said keeping C for that entire line is a bit boring. So we also said we could have gone to F. And then we move on to they are weak. It's the same, almost the same thing as what we did already. It's this whole line, you could argue, is F. Except here now, the melody note goes down to G. So I think it's appropriate for us to go back to C in terms of our chord. And then the melody goes all the way down to C. I went to G here. We end up with the same problem, if you think it's a problem, of holding an E over the G chord. Then your melody goes, and then, so we could have, let's see if we can harmonize it a different way. Look at that. When we went down to C, they are weak, and then when we go down to but, harmonize it over F, and then E, you could go back to C, because you have E in the melody. You could go back to C, then is, the note is D, so you could go, then, now let me slow this down, because if I were to play so many chords, I would have broken my own rule. If you recall, I had said that we should play 1 chord for 2 beats. If I were to do all of those changes, that would take me outside of the parameters of this exercise. So let's try to follow the rules. So it is they are, then weak, but, then I went to G, he is, then strong. Now, I think at this point, you might be seeing that the rules, even the whole idea of playing one chord for 2 beats is not necessarily hard and fast. As we move on, we will not be adhering to that rule. But I would hope that even this exercise gives you an indication of the number of different possibilities, even just using those 3 chords. So for this lesson, let me just finish up with my selections and looking at a few other possibilities. So let us now go to the chorus. The chorus is, so my selections were, I went to F, then it's the same thing again. Excuse me. So the second Yes, Jesus Loves Me, it is back to the same E over G chord. Then we carry on. F. Then down to C. Same thing. E over G. How else could we have done it? So let's try again. Yes, Jesus. Then could we have gone to G? Excuse me. Excuse me. The melody note was A. I don't think that works. Harmonizing an A melody note over G, I don't think that's a viable option. What do you think? But let's go again. Could you have instead stayed on C? No, I think that sounds horrible. So we do have to change, in my estimation. So it's either we go to F or we go to G. We tried G, it didn't work. That doesn't work. And that doesn't work either. So I think our only viable option here is F. So it would be then back to C. Now when we get to here, when we get to the E over G, let's see if something else would work. This is the second Yes, Jesus Loves Me of the chorus. To me, it just seems as if something is to come. This doesn't sound like a stable sound in and of itself, but tell me what you think. I'll play it again. And then we carry on. We already said for this one, this third line of the chorus is the same as the first. And we already found out that neither C nor G works over this part. So I'll play it again. We had tried. We said that sounded horrible. And we also tried. That probably sounds worse. Or really just as bad. So I think our only option here is F. So our option is then we carry on. This is what I had chosen. If you notice, I keep going to the E over G. Then back to C. So for that closing line, the Bible tells me so. And when you go to the E, could you go to? For me, playing an E over an F sounds like it's on its way to something else. But again, it's a matter for you. Now, on this occasion, I've gone through a few possibilities for using those 3 chords to play through Jesus Loves Me. I hope this was helpful. Maybe some of the alternatives that I came up with were alternatives you yourself had come up with. But the thing I want you to take away from this lesson is that the main reason why chords will work to harmonize with a melody note is if that melody note is actually one of the notes in the chord that you've chosen. But that's not a hard and fast rule. There are instances where your melody note is not in the chord that you're playing beneath it, but it works well. For instance, when we started the song, we went, and I went here, then back to C, and we had explored the fact that if instead of going up to G, you went to F, the F actually harmonizes quite nicely beneath the E. So it would be. The thing is that when you went to F and played E over it, there's no E in the F chord, but it works. Look at this. The F chord is F, A, C, and then your melody note is E. If I bring it down here, it would be this. That sounds nice, doesn't it? But the E is not in the chord, so it's not a hard and fast rule is the point I'm making. Let's just do it one more time. Okay? So, please play around with those harmonies. Stay within the parameters. The parameters are we're only using these 3 chords, just for now. The C chord, the F chord, and the G chord. Now that you know the melody for Jesus Loves Me, I can tell you, and you've probably figured it out on your own anyway, your starting note for Jesus Loves Me in the key of C major is G. From there, I'm sure you can figure out what the other notes of the melody are. It goes down to G, to E when it moves, then down to D, back to E, then up to G. Then we carry on up to A, then C, back to A again, then G, and then pretty much that again, or half of it. Then up to A, then G, down to C, then E, then D, then C. And then your melody is G, E, back to G, then A, then C, then back to G again, down to E, then C, E, then D, then we start again, G, E, back to G, A, then C, then A, G, C, E, D, C. Now, with that melody line, you can do precisely what I did in this exercise. Check your melody notes against each of the 3 chords that we're using at any given point and explore and see what you come up with. The next time, we're going to go deeper into playing Jesus Loves Me. We're going to throw off the shackles and we're going to now explore how we actually move towards being able to play the melody, harmonize the melody on the piano. Not just with one finger in the right hand as I was doing for this exercise, but to be able to play and so on. That will be for the next lesson. Thank you for joining me and take care. Bye-bye.